The Western Hunting and Conservation Expo, produced in cooperation with the Utah Office of Tourism. Get tickets and details at huntexpo.com.
If you've ever experienced running out of hot water before your shower was done, or hard water spots on dishes and fixtures, I've got a deal you might be interested in. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and you probably already know that a tankless water heater and a water softener solve both issues. If you've ever thought about looking into getting a tankless water heater, here's the deal I was talking about. Through the end of February, we're including a free water softener with every new tankless water heater we install. The best part of this deal might be that you never have to worry about being the last one to the shower again, or that you don't have to waste the money keeping 40 to 50 gallons of water hot 24/7. To take advantage of this deal, call Any Hour Services before the end of February. The visit's free and there's no obligation to buy. If you decide to have us install a new tankless water heater, we'll throw in the water softener for free. That's right, a free water softener when you purchase a tankless water heater. Pick up the phone and call Any Hour Services right now for all the details. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Healthcare with human kindness is here. It's at Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Together, we have a common purpose, partnering with you in health and healing using powerful medicine, powerful technology, and the greatest power of all, human kindness. You'll know it when you see it, because human kindness is in every care site and in every caregiver. Common Spirit Health. Hello, human kindness.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
It's a beautiful day for a drive on the Valley freeways or up into the canyons. We have good road conditions on I-80 in Parleys, Big and Little Cottonwood. We still have the final cleanup of a small crash in Tooele County. Highway 36, Main Street at Erta Way. The UACPA supports certified professional accountants in Utah through ongoing professional education and leadership development to help them succeed in an ever-changing financial world. Find a CPA that's right for you at uacpa.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, mostly cloudy today, high around 45. We'll see rain and snow showers tomorrow with a trace to a couple of inches of snow possible in the valleys. And right now, 45 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
The results of the New Hampshire primary election are in, and all the headlines today focus on the question of whether or not Nikki Haley will drop out of the race. Should she drop out? What happens if she does or does not drop out of the race? But let's get a little think again perspective in all of this. After the election results were all tallied last night, let's give you the scoreboard because we believe in results and scoreboards. Here's the score. For the Republicans, Donald Trump has a total of 32 delegates. Nikki Haley has 17 delegates. The think again number, the number of delegates you need to be the nominee is 1,215. 1,215. So it's 32 to 17. So why are so many trying to call the game that has to go to 1,215 when we're at 32 to 17? Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
All right, it is time to think again, once again, here on Inside Sources. And so the first thing I'm going to ask you to do today is, regardless of whether you are a former President Donald Trump supporter or whether you are a Nikki Haley supporter, whether you are a President Biden supporter, whether you're a Representative Phillips supporter, I just need you to set all that on the shelf for a minute. And we're just going to go through the numbers and why we have to be very careful as a country about chasing narratives and chasing headlines. It prevents us and keeps us a safe distance from having discussions, real debates, and the kind of conversation that will lead us to a better country, not just better politics. So, as I said off the top, the score is 32 to 17. Now, even a football game, that might seem like a little bit of a lead, but again, we've got so many more minutes to go in this game. There's 1,215. That's the number you have to get to. If you don't get to that number, you don't get to be the nominee. Doesn't matter who you are. You have to get to 1,215. So why we're saying it's all over at 32-17 is a little head-scratching to me. But it's the narrative that many wanted to make, that this is over. And we'll come back to that a little later on. We're going to talk about this for the next 20 minutes. We're going to break it down from both the Democrat and Republican side of the aisle and why the elites, those in power in both parties, want to have a coronation rather than an election. We sort of fought a war over that in this country. We believe in elections, not coronations. So let's pick it up on the Republican side. Again, set your bias aside on this. During her speech last night in New Hampshire, Nikki Haley declared that the race is far from over.
Now, you've all heard the chatter among the political class. They're falling all over themselves, saying this race is over. Well, I have news for all of them. New Hampshire is first in the nation. It is not the last in the nation. This race is far from over. There are dozens of states left.
All right, so that's Nikki Haley from last night following the tally and the announcements in terms of the wins there in New Hampshire. And again, whether you support her or not, she's not wrong. She's not wrong. New Hampshire is indeed first in the nation primary. Don't want to upset our Iowa listeners today. It is first in the nation primary. Iowa gets first in the nation caucus. They've had that debate and battle. That's the real debate and battle, New Hampshire versus Iowa. But this is the beginning of the beginning. Nikki Haley said that voters don't want that coronation that I alluded to. They want an election, and that her campaign is just ramping up.
But South Carolina voters don't want a coronation. They want an election, and we're going to give them one because we are just getting started. Thank you for the energy.
So that was the beginning there for Nikki Haley, again, making that pivot to South Carolina. And some of the pundits have come out and said, well, South Carolina is over. Former President Trump has a huge lead, 20, 30 points. And again, you have to look at it in the context of things, not in the moment. Not just the narrative of things, not just the headline of things. So if you went back to late November in New Hampshire, Nikki Haley was polling just above double digits. She was about 12%. And then just a little over 6.5 weeks later, she got all the way to 43. So things clearly change. Numbers are pretty slippery things. They're pretty stretchy things when it comes to presidential politics. So does that mean she's going to win her home state of South Carolina? Not necessarily. But 6 weeks in political terms is an eternity. All kinds of things can happen, and that's why we play the game, because we wanted to play all the way out and see what happens. Now, really interesting also last night, former President Donald Trump, during his victory speech, went after Nikki Haley's confidence that she's been displaying in her speeches and her addresses to supporters, saying that she pretends to win even when she loses.
And she was up, and I said, wow, she's doing like a speech like she won. She didn't win, she lost. If you remember, Ron was very upset because she ran up and she pretended she won Iowa. And I looked around, I said, didn't she come in third? Yeah, she came in third.
So, again, that's the former president saying, look, she didn't win. She shouldn't act like she won. But we all know when it comes to politics, it's about perception and it's about momentum. And clearly that's what Nikki Haley was trying to do. For his part, former President Trump is trying to lock it all down and say, this is over. This is done. There's nothing left to do. There's nothing left to debate. And so, again, whether you agree with the former president or not, you have to go through the numbers and say, okay, we've got this many. How many more do we need? And what's the path to get there? I think it would be offensive to the other 48 states in the country to say, well, Iowa and New Hampshire, they've done their thing. Let's just knock off the rest. We don't need it. I don't think that's a great representation of the country. Again, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or anything in between, I don't think that's a good cross-section of the country. And so regardless of who's in front, the process should continue. The process matters. And part of the problem as voters is we keep buying into the narrative that it all has to be done in January. Nobody, and get this, here's a think again for you. Even if Nikki Haley dropped out today, Donald Trump would not become the nominee for the Republicans until sometime in May. Because that's the earliest he would have enough delegates to be the nominee. And so we've got to quit thinking that this is all done because of what the consultants are saying or what the headline cable news is saying. It's a numbers. It's a process. And so let the process play out. And in that process, let's demand some real conversations about real principles and real policies that will make a difference for the American people. All right, we're going to stay with the campaign conversation. When we come back, we'll pick up on some of the back and forth between some of the candidates. We'll look at the Democratic side of the aisle, what the President Biden did in New Hampshire, what his challengers are saying, and what everybody ought to be looking at over the next 6 weeks until the people of South Carolina take a vote, and the 6 weeks after that before a number of states vote, including Utah, on Super Tuesday.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. The Cougars tear into their first Big 12 conference games.
And Spencer finds him for the hammer.
Saturday at 11, it's BYU, Texas. BYU, Texas. Pre-game coverage, Saturday at 11 on Utah's legacy home for the Big 12 and the BYU Cougars. KSL News Radio.
IVC, Interventional Vascular and Vein Center, is having a New Year, New Leg special event on Saturday, January 27th. This will be a free screening for varicose veins at their office in Provo. Don't let leg pain slow you down in 2024. Why wait? Now is the time to kick off the new year with new legs. Come and learn why starting at the beginning of the year is ideal to get you ready for spring. IVC has been in business for over 20 years and has been voted the best vein center of Utah Valley for 10 years running. IVC's doctors, advanced practice providers, and sonographers will be on hand to answer your questions. So come see them Saturday, January 27th for a free varicose vein screening. Space is limited, so please RSVP right now. Visit ivein.com. That's the letter I, VEIN.com to schedule your New Year, New Legs free screening at IVC. Because life starts when the pain stops.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Progressive knows we're all trying to save right now.
Hey, at least we're still enjoying baseball on a Saturday night, right?
Even if it is T-ball.
Yeah, but tickets to the majors are just so expensive now. And who knows, maybe we're seeing a pro in the making.
Sure, in like 20 years.
How is he safe? Boo! This ump stinks!
The ump is only 14. We don't really do that.
Oh, my bad.
You're doing a great job, ump.
Progressive offers you savings without sacrifice. So save big when you bundle home and auto. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
Do you enjoy fishing, hunting, or just soaking in the beautiful outdoors? Then check out the KSL Outdoors Show, airing Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and midnight on KSL 5 TV. Outdoors with Adam Eagle is a unique show that takes viewers on a journey through Utah's beautiful backcountry. Watch it live every weekend or find the KSL Outdoors Show on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. It's the KSL Outdoors Show, brought to you by Camp Chef.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
KSL and the Movie Show will be at My Hearing Centers this Friday from 10 to 1. My Hearing Centers changes lives through better hearing. Visit myhearingcenters.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a jury in Salt Lake City has convicted Richard Christopher of 2 murders that happened more than 9 years ago. He was found not guilty on a 3rd murder charge. Second, the owner of the Utah Jazz has asked the NHL to bring a Major League Hockey team to Utah. The NHL says they'll be talking. And third, a senator from Alaska is complaining about all these 737 jets that are grounded right now. He says it's a big inconvenience for people traveling to and from his home state. Right now, 45 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. We're staying with the conversation as it relates to the campaign. We're trying to get beyond the headlines and think again about this whole process in terms of becoming the nominee for both the Democrats and the Republicans. Of course, most of the attention is on the Republicans as the Democrats are a little more settled with President Joe Biden clearly in command there. But we're going to come to a couple of things as it relates to the Democrats as well. But I just want to go back to this idea of, again, suspend judgment, regardless of if you're a Republican or an independent or a moderate Republican or a MAGA Republican or whatever adjective you want to throw in there. Play the game. Let the game play out. Don't be in a rush. And let's have some real conversations about it. As we said at the top of the show, if you're just joining us, the race for the Republicans to win the game and be the nominee, you have to have 1,215 delegates. As of last night in New Hampshire, between Iowa and New Hampshire, the score of the game is 32 for Donald Trump, 17 for Nikki Haley. And yet, all the experts, all the cable news networks are saying it's over, Nikki Haley should drop out, game, set, match. If we take it from tennis to football, it would be like calling off the game 2 minutes into the game. We're 2 minutes into the game. So play the game. I think we should play the game out. I think we should see what happens. There's all kinds of things that can happen in between. It's 6 weeks. 6 weeks until South Carolina votes. Remember that Nikki Haley was just barely above double digits in New Hampshire back in November, just 6 weeks ago. She ended up at 43% on the night. That's a pretty significant change. And a lot of things happened. Chris Christie got out. Ron DeSantis got out. Nikki Haley had some good performances, got some momentum, got some extra funding coming into her campaign coffers, and she made a much better play in New Hampshire. So things take time and things have to play out. So really interesting to make sure we're not getting into that instant certainty, not doing the coronation path. That's not what we do in this country. We have elections for a reason. So Nikki Haley's stance towards Donald Trump has become more pointed, of course, as she becomes the last woman standing in this competition. She pointed out his electoral record and losses for Republicans as a reason not to vote for the former president again.
With Donald Trump, Republicans have lost almost every competitive election. We lost the Senate. We lost the House. We lost the White House. We lost in 2018. We lost in 2020. And we lost in 2022. The worst kept secret in politics is how badly The Democrats want to run against Donald Trump.
So that's a very interesting thing in terms of Joe Biden. Joe Biden's path to the second term in office clearly goes through Donald Trump. Look at any of the polling relating to a head-to-head matchup with Nikki Haley, and she's winning by double digits. Again, that's very early, and those dynamics will change for sure were she to be the nominee. But that's an important thing, is that we don't want to do these things so fast. Let them play out. It was also interesting that Nikki Haley, in referencing both Joe Biden and Donald Trump, made a prediction about the election.
The first party to retire its 80-year-old candidate is going to be the party that wins this election. And I think it should be the Republicans that win this election.
Now, we do have to fact check slightly there. Donald Trump is only 77. He would be 78 if he makes it all the way to the first Tuesday in November and wins. He would be 78 years old. Of course, Joe Biden north of that. One of the interesting things was that she called on the former president to debate her after he claimed that he would do better than she would on a mental competency test.
No, I've long called for mental competency tests for politicians over the age of 75. Trump claims he'd do better than me in one of those tests. Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. But if he thinks that, then he should have no problem standing on a debate stage with me.
That would be an interesting debate. Again, I don't think the status quo will be enough to get the former president to get on a debate stage with Nikki Haley. Things would have to change. Always remember, if you're winning, status quo is good for you. And so I don't see a scenario right now where Donald Trump would say, yep, I'll debate Nikki Haley. I don't think he's going to do that unless things start to tighten or the dynamics start to change. Always remember, status quo is what drives most politics, politicians, and political campaigns. And so we'll continue to watch that. Again, I think it's important for us, regardless of political persuasion or belief, is that we have to make sure these are actually real races for significant offices. And we should do that up and down the ballot, by the way, whether it's city council or local school board or governor or anything in between. We need to make sure we have real races with real debates about real issues. And that's something we've got to get back to if we're going to fix the broken politics of the country. Again, politics has failed. America has not, and we remain confident about that because we live here in the state of Utah. We know it's community and culture that lead. Politicians will follow. Sometimes they're just a little bit slow. All right, I want to shift gears here for a minute as we round out our focus on New Hampshire and go to the Democratic side of the election. Minnesota Representative Dean Phillips got about 20%, a little north of 20% of the vote in New Hampshire. After being a relative unknown. He congratulated President Biden on the win, and I will note President Biden won with a write-in campaign. The president was not even on the ballot in New Hampshire. They did have a little write-in campaign, and the president ended up winning that. But Representative Phillips pointed out some of the weakness in the position of the president, especially as an incumbent.
Congratulations to President Biden, who absolutely won tonight, but by no means in a way that a strong incumbent president should, but I respect him. He won.
And then Dean also sat down with CNN for an interview the day of the election, taking notes from independent candidates like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Dr. Cornel West. Dean Phillips desired that we have to take on the state of the duopoly party system, he says, is working against the interests of American voters.
And the fact is we have a duopoly, a two-party system that is literally working against voters. And voters who don't want to show up and vote in primaries and then get frustrated by the choices we have in November, that's part of the problem. We have a crisis of participation. My party is completely delusional right now. And somebody had to wake us up. And if that's my job, so be it.
So that's Representative Dean Phillips on his presidential campaign. And I agree with him in the fact that we do have a duopoly, that we literally have. I actually think it's a monopoly. It's just a two-headed monopoly with Democrats and Republicans, convincing us that we only have two choices, that you're at the presidential level, you either have Joe Biden or Donald Trump. And politicians love to tell us that. It's either or. It's us or them. There are no other choices. And that is a false choice. And when we, the people, start to reject the false choices, not just in presidential elections, but on a whole host of things that we need to solve in this country, including border security, including our broken immigration system, including health care and homelessness and a host of other issues. If we just all keep buying in to what the monopoly and the two-headed monster of the current political system with Democrats and Republicans is serving up, we will continue to get exactly that. Fake fights, false choices, a lot of animosity, a lot of contempt, and nothing that actually solves the problems of the American people. So we got to get past the headlines. Let the races race out. No coronations in this country. We fought a war over that. We have real elections. Let's make sure we keep them that way. That's up to you and me. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top local story this hour. There's been a significant change in the so-called bathroom bill being considered by the Utah legislature. KSL TV reports it no longer prohibits transgender people from using bathrooms of the sex they identify with, but people will be required to use the locker rooms of the sex designated on their birth certificate. The bill has already passed the House. It's being heard in the state Senate. Utah Jazz owner Ryan Smith and his team have formally asked the NHL to bring an expansion hockey team to Utah. KSL News Radio's Adam Small has more on the idea and what locals think.
I spoke with several people outside the Delta Center today who all said they'd be excited to have another pro sports team here.
A hockey team down in Utah, it would be really, really good.
I'm not opposed to it. I think that would actually be perfect. It'd be something different.
However, one fan said he didn't want to get ahead of himself until this is a done deal, something that could take a while since the decision to actually bring a team here or not is completely up to the NHL's Board of Governors.
The NHL did say in a statement they are impressed and they look forward to continuing discussions with the Smith Entertainment Group. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A major milestone for the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. ABC News White House correspondent Karen Travers has details.
President Biden announced Wednesday a record-breaking 21.3 million people signed up for health care coverage through the Affordable Care Act. The White House says since the president took office, 9 million more people have coverage through healthcare.gov. And through the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act, health care premiums for millions of Americans with Obamacare coverage are lower by an average of $800 annually through next year. Former President Trump on the campaign trail continues to promise to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, calling it a, quote, catastrophe. Karen Travers, ABC News. The White House.
Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down 46 points right now, while the NASDAQ is up by 59. And our KSL weather, look for the clouds to come back with a little rain tomorrow. That's next. KSL News Time 1:32.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
I posed for so many pictures during the holiday season in front of the Christmas tree, with the kids, at family parties. And you know what was the greatest thing about this year's Christmas pictures? For the first time, I didn't have to do the, hold the belly in. Because I've lost almost 60 pounds with SOTA weight loss. That's SOTA, stands for state of the art. Yeah, for years and years it was, okay, take the picture so I can let my breath out. But this year I didn't have to do that, and it was such a great feeling. And I want you to enjoy that exact same feeling that I have. And so let me tell you how you can do it for free. You could win a full year of SOTA's amazing program and a $2,000 wardrobe makeover in SOTA's Shape Up Showdown. To enter, all you gotta do is email shapeup@sotaweightloss.com. That's shapeup@sotaweightloss.com. It's as simple as that. So get on the road to success in 2024 with SOTA Weight Loss. SOTA Weight Loss is, say it with me, state of the art.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, over-designed, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try soon. Harry's is available online and in-store at a retailer near you. Get a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/quality. That's harrys.com/quality. Or check us out at your local Costco for a price you can't find anywhere else. Just look for the Chrome Razor with 13 blade refills at your local Costco. You can't miss it. Exclusive to Costco members.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money. But do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At Capital Wealth Advisors, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the Capital Wealth Advisors team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 801-210-5500. That's 801-210-5500. You work hard for your money, and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. Capital Wealth Advisors, 801-210-5500. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
An accident in Weber County. This is northbound I-15 near the Riverdale Road Junction. All vehicles are out of traffic on the right shoulder. Wasatch Front businesses and property managers, don't wait for bad weather. Schedule professional snow service with GoPave Utah. For complete parking lot safety, visit GoPaveUtah.com. GoPaveUtah.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, mostly cloudy today, high around 45. And we'll see rain and snow showers tomorrow with a trace to a couple of inches of snow possible in the valleys. Right now, we're at 46 degrees with a lot of sunshine around. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the Biden administration has taken every opportunity to admonish the current tax rate for millionaires and billionaires, claiming that they pay an average of just 8% in taxes. Very fashionable, very popular applause line in big political events. But we want to get past the headlines of all of that. And as you all know, we're equal opportunity offenders, and so we love fact checkers. And today we're really thrilled to have joining us on the program, really one of the pioneers in political fact checking. Glenn Kessler has been editor and chief writer of The Fact Checker for the Washington Post since 2011. He knows his way around a fact checker or two. And Glenn, welcome to the show.
Glad to be with you.
So let's break this down just a little bit. President Biden keeps beating the drum on the billionaires only paying 8% taxes. Again, it's a great applause line at a political rally. Is it reality?
Well, no, not really. I mean, just to step back a bit, it's basically data that looks at the 400 richest households, which are probably all households that are billionaires. But when those households file their taxes with the U.S. government, and there's data that aggregates that, you can see that they're paying generally most of them are paying 20 to 30% of their income in taxes. So how does Biden get it down to 8%? He's adding in something that is currently not treated as income under the current U.S. tax code.
And so unpack that for us just a little bit, Glenn, in terms of, and Democrats and Republicans are both guilty of this. It's kind of the long and winding road to the line in the speech. Give us a sense of the long, winding road as it relates to those taxes.
Well, most people most people have pretty simple tax situations. So say you earn $50,000 a year and a certain percentage of your income goes to pay taxes, and you also pay things like Social Security or Medicare taxes, which you hopefully get back after you retire. If you're a particularly wealthy person, a lot of your wealth would be invested in stocks. And with stocks, you don't pay a tax until you sell that stock at a gain, and even then, the tax you pay, what's known as a capital gain, is taxed at a lower rate than you would pay if it just was ordinary income. So, just to take an example, Jeff Bezos, he owns the Washington Post. In the period that he owned the Washington Post, his wealth increased several tens of billions of dollars because the price of Amazon stock kept going up. But unless he sold that stock, he wouldn't pay any tax on it. So what Biden has proposed to do with very rich people like billionaires is that you would pay a certain tax based on the increase in your wealth in the past year, even if you hadn't sold that stock that is behind that wealth that you have. And so that's where he gets this higher income level, and then that, of course, reduces the percentage that you can say that these people have paid in taxes. It's a very controversial position. Economists, particularly conservative economists, don't buy it. More liberal economists say, look, this is a fair way to look at really what's happening with the income of these very wealthy people. To take another example, Elon Musk, when he bought Twitter, he took out loans from other companies that he owned, so he never really sold the stock. So he never had to pay tax on the stock. So the idea is we're going to get at some of this wealth that these people have that they're holding on to, and in theory never pay taxes on, even when they die. That's a whole separate issue, the estate tax. But anyway.
And it's so interesting to play all of those out. And I was trying to think of it in the context of usually what starts with going after the millionaires and billionaires usually ends up being part of the rest of us in terms of the tax law. And so if we did kind of play this thing out a little bit, so for an average American, if their stock went up, and so that value went up, they would have to pay taxes on that increase, or ultimately you could see that even playing out, I guess, on the value of your home. If that value increased, would you then have to pay tax on that? And then what happens if the market goes down, whether that's the housing market or the stock market? I think it gets pretty complicated fairly quickly.
Right, and I should note that the proposal that the Biden administration has made, where they would impose this minimum 25% tax, it would only apply to people with wealth greater than $100 million. So that's not me. I presume that's not you, and
We're out.
A lot of you, or a lot of your listeners. So your listeners should not think that they're suddenly going to say, "Oh, if that value of my house went up $25,000 in the next year, I'm going to have to pay, even though I haven't sold my house." That's not a problem. It's only limited to us. Ideas. It's only limited to a very tiny sliver of taxpayers who. Make a lot of money. There was if you look at the taxpayers, the 400 wealthiest taxpayers, the latest data is 2014, they paid $30 billion in income taxes that year. That's 2% of all income taxes, and it's actually more than the bottom 70% of all taxpayers combined.
Oh, wow.
So that's how wealthy these people are.
Yeah.
And the Biden administration believes they're actually getting away with paying, because of the way capital is accumulated, they're actually getting away with a lot more, and they want to tap some of that. The estimate is that over 10 years they would get $360 billion worth of taxes from this uber wealthy group of people.
Yeah, fascinating stuff, and it's always the long winding road is always the interesting thing to me. Glenn, before I let you go, You've been doing the fact-checking thing for a long time. You pioneered a lot of that for sure. Give me your sense, especially as we live in this age where information is just going so fast and where candidates and campaigns and administrations from the local level all the way to the White House can put out so much. They can just flood the zone on so many things. What should we as consumers of news and consumers of information, how do we put on our own personal kind of fact-checker screening as we absorb all of this, especially in an election year?
Well, that's a great question. It is difficult. I mean, you have to assume if a politician is making assertions, they're spinning you a bit, whether it's someone on the left or someone on the right. And that's part of what I do with a large part of what I do with the fact checker is to take like a claim like 8% taxes paid by billionaires and dissect where that came from and whether it stands up to reality. And you just have to, and the thing is, we all have confirmation bias, so we all tend to pay more attention to things that confirms what we already believe. So you have to hold yourself in check and not only look at left-leaning sources or right-leaning sources, look at all sources and try to come as close as you can to reality, because no matter whether you're a Biden fan or a Trump fan, both of these guys are going to say things that need to be taken with a large grain of salt.
Yeah, no question. A huge grain of salt on both sides. Again, equal opportunity offenders here. Great stuff, as always. Glenn Kessler, editor and chief writer of The Fact Checker for The Washington Post. He's someone who should be part of your day to make sure you're getting that grain of salt in the right dose and in the right place. Glenn, thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
All right, that's Glenn Kessler, again, from The Washington Post. He is I think he's the original fact checker, and it's great counsel for all of us, not just in terms of these lines we've been hearing about what billionaires pay in taxes. There's much more to it. We're going to stay with the taxes question and bring it to a local level. Some of the things the governor has called for over time to look at income tax be eliminated. We'll talk about that coming up next.
God, I'm so stressed. It's a brand new year and our business is busier than ever.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending the Ooma cloud phone system with auto attendant and more than 35 features.
Ooma?
Yep. Switching to Ooma is a cinch. Starts at $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Now you're feeling it. Visit Ooma.com. That's OOMA.com to learn more. Ooma. Smart communications for the smarter business.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Do you ever feel like getting your supplies for your CPAP is just a huge headache? Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. We'll say goodbye to the hassle and hello to a stress-free life with our CPAP resupply service. Signing up is a breeze. Just place a call, choose your products, and leave the insurance billing and shipping to us. Our discreet packaging prioritizes your privacy, and we always ensure an on-time delivery. No more trips to the store or worrying about running out of important supplies. We get how crucial your CPAP therapy is, so don't let the stress of keeping up with it affect your sleep and health. Join Alpine Resupply today and enjoy a tranquil night's sleep with all your CPAP essentials. Visit us at alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
That's alpinehomemedical.com.
The monster is coming, and it wants you and your family.
And that's great news, really, because it's time for the Bear Lake Monster Winterfest, January 26th through the 28th. Winterfest is all about an incredible celebration of winter and all the fun it brings. So start Friday with Monster Winter Sports and Trails Day, a free event featuring fat tire bikes, snowshoes, snowmobiles, and tubes for the kids. Also a taste of Bear Lake. with local restaurants dishing up their tasty specialties. Then Saturday, it's the Monster 5K Walk and Run, a Monster Cisco Disco Tournament, chili cook-off, even a cardboard boat regatta, followed by the famous Monster Plunge. Come on, Bear Lake awaits. Visit BearLakeMonsterWinterfest.com for pre-registration times and locations. That's BearLakeMonsterWinterfest.com. Presented by Bear Lake Visitors Bureau and Bear Lake Chamber.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the bill that originally meant to keep transgender people from using restrooms different from their birth certificates is being changed at the Utah legislature. The current version prohibits the use of locker rooms that don't match birth records. Second, police in Bluffdale say a call for medical assistance ended with officers shooting and killing a man. Third, former President Trump has promised to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, even as a record number of people have signed up for it. Right now, we're partly cloudy, 46 degrees in Salt Lake City, and back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
We are very thrilled to have joining us on the program today Jared Walczak, Vice President of State Projects at the Tax Foundation. And, of course, taxes are always a big issue. It's one of those few things you can count on in life. It's one thing we always like to debate and discuss, and it's one that has gotten some energy here in the state of Utah. Of course, Governor Spencer Cox made a statement early in the year saying, let's not just tinker around the edges with this. Let's just get rid of the income tax altogether. And, Jared, as you look at this, give us a sense, one, what is it that the governor's actually saying, and then how would that actually play out in reality?
Yeah, I think the governor's statement is aspirational, and it is about setting a long-term priority. He's not saying let's repeal the income tax this year, because you just can't do that. I mean, this raises about $6.4 billion a year. There's not a ready and easily available offset for this. What he is saying is let's do long-term planning and long-term coordination. So we're thinking about what is our end state here, and how do we start restructuring the tax code to achieve those goals so that we can maybe someday be a no-income tax state, or at least can make significant progress on reducing the rate.
Yeah, and that's always the question, right? Is how do we get there from here? And I do love the fact that we're having some of these conversations that are going to take some time to actually do. They're not just the easy campaign bumper sticker kinds of things, but starting to have serious conversations of how we make that kinds of transition. So kind of give us your assessment from your unique perspective in terms of what that might look like and what would the impact be, and what's the right glide path for that, I guess?
Yeah, well, it's the right focus. The individual income tax, compared to other taxes, is a burden on both labor and investment. It reduces, the return to work. It makes it more expensive to hire in the state. It has more of an effect on growth than a sales tax or a number of other forms of taxation. So prioritizing reducing the income tax makes sense. We've had 26 states cut income tax rates in the last 3 years. Utah, of course, is one of them, and there's a reason for this focus. So if you're going to actually repeal the income tax over time, not just reduce the rates somewhat, you have to think about replacement revenue. This is about 22% of the total budget. It's 40% of the general fund budget. You're not going to cut your way to that, and you are not going to grow your way to that in any reasonable time horizon. So you're looking at either sales tax base broadening, sales tax rate reduction, state rate increases, or both, or some sort of other offset to make that a reality.
Yeah, and let's unpack that a little bit, because there's always kind of that shifting ebb and flow of those of if we get rid of the income tax but we increase property taxes, do we price people out in terms of businesses or people coming to the state? Same with sales tax. If things get so expensive we stop buying. Kind of walk us through the dynamics of that.
Sure. So there's always trade-offs in policy. That's true in tax policy. That's true anywhere in policy. With the sales tax, because it's a more economically efficient tax, it does less typically to change economic behavior. It makes sense to shift somewhat towards the sales tax and away from other taxes. Of course, when you add in the local taxes on average, Utah residents are seeing about a 7.2% overall state and local rate. That's a little higher than middle of the pack already, and therefore there's some capacity there, not a ton. There's also base broadening that can be done to modernize the tax code, to bring more personal services in particular, as we become an incredibly service-oriented economy. But there's guardrails here in both places. You can't raise the rate too high, and you don't want to bring intermediate transactions in where they'll pyramid, where you'll end up paying the same sales tax multiple times on a final product because it was levied during the production process at multiple stages. So there's risks here. You want to approach this cautiously, and I think that's why it's an aspirational statement. It's similar to something that Governor Paulus in Colorado, a Democrat, has said that he'd also like to see the income tax repealed, but there's not a proposal on the table to do that right now. It's more about structuring all of the tax reform conversations in the coming years about how can we focus on a stated objective rather than just tinkering.
Yeah, and give us your perspective, Jared. You look at this from a national perspective, looking at each of the states independently. Who's doing this really well in terms of having this conversation?
A number of states are making significant progress on meaningful income tax rate reduction. Iowa is a really good example right now, a state that had an 8.98% top marginal rate just a few years ago, and some really quirky policies within that. They're headed down looking at a 3.9% rate and now talking about going even lower. Repeal is not on the table right now, but that's a really substantial reduction. North Carolina, a state that went from a high rate to a much lower rate and are looking at bringing that even lower. There's a lot of states that are doing this. The actual repeal conversation in some states has been more aggressive, but that conversation can get in the way of meaningful reductions, because if it's all or nothing, often the answer has to be nothing. When it's a state like Mississippi that was looking at just fully repealing their individual income tax, or West Virginia doing so, and not having reasonable replacements. It took a while to dial that back and say, this isn't a viable option right now. You can afford rate reductions. They would make sense. You can be more in line with your peers. But that conversation took a few years because there were lawmakers who were only fixated on we can repeal. And hey, it's a great long-term goal, but sometimes it's not responsibly attainable immediately, especially if, as in those states, lawmakers were reaching for some really bad pay-fors.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important part of this, because sometimes in the political overreach or the immediacy of, hey, we're going to be the ones to get rid of the income tax, it actually prevents us from having the more important discussion in terms of what you're describing as that incremental approach to get there over time and to make sure we're being efficient with what we are spending, to make sure we're gathering resources in the right way in terms of that collection, and then where we actually apply those as we go along. Help us understand how we avoid or what the conversation currently happening in the state can lead us to. Again, not that false choice of all or nothing, but what are the steps that should be happening in this year's legislative session? What are those conversations to look like?
I know the governor has said that he is open to further incremental cuts, even though he is really interested in a broader conversation. And I think those incremental cuts do have merit. Utah's revenues are still growing. Obviously, there has to be some caution around that right now, but there seems to be the capacity to bring the rate down even a little more. And hey, a few years ago, the average rate across the country, you're looking at about 6%. And now it's below 5%. So Utah's still below that on its top rate, but the margin's smaller because so many states are cutting their rates. And Utah has been a magnet for a lot of growth and for a lot of immigration and for a lot of opportunity. And I think there's a good reason to continue that focus, to go 4 years in a row on rate reductions if that's an option, but to also think about what is the next step. Can you start laying the groundwork for something that maybe it doesn't get you to repeal, but gets you much further than some of these incremental reductions? But what I'd really also want to emphasize is that whenever we're talking about rate reductions, that should be understood as an instrumental goal, not an ultimate goal. Yeah. The ultimate goal is a thriving economy, growth, opportunity. These are things you want. These are big ideas that we want. Rate reductions can help get you there, but not all are created equal. You go too far and exceed your capacity, that's not good. If you decide that you want an income tax reduction so badly that you'll use any pay for, no matter how poorly structured, no matter how economically damaging, that's no good either. That was what West Virginia was talking about. You had a governor who said, I want to repeal the income tax, and I'll create any set of other taxes, no matter how bad they are, if I can get no income tax. And that's not worth it.
Yeah, that's such great perspective. You have to make sure you have the balance points in place in terms of the economy, the pay-fors, the future. All of those things have to be brought in, which is why we love having you on the show, is to give us that perspective of here's the path, here's what the conversation can look like, and can actually move us all forward. Jared Walczak, Vice President, State Projects at the Tax Foundation. Great perspective. An important conversation right here in the state of Utah and across the country. Jared, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
That wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Some fascinating stuff from both local taxes, national taxes, and getting to the real conversation. We're going to do more of that in hour number 2. Stick around. More Inside Sources coming up next.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Utah lawmakers making a major change to a bill that originally restricted people to the bathrooms matching the gender listed on their birth certificates. They're taking bathrooms out of the bill, just making it now about changing rooms.
For bathrooms, the bill focuses on the actions of those who commit lewd and offensive behavior in privacy space. It's no longer related to gender or identity.
Senator Dan McKay introduced those changes today. It faces just one more vote, likely later this week. A person is dead after an officer-involved shooting in Bluffdale. The Bluffdale Police Department confirmed this started as a medical emergency call and then escalated to an officer shooting someone at the scene. Police say that man was taken to the hospital, died a short time later. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Joe Biden picking up a key endorsement from the United Auto Workers. UAW President Shawn Fain spoke to members about Mr. Biden's commitment to organized labor.
He joined us in solidarity on the picket line for the first time in our nation's history. A sitting president has ever done that.
At the same time, Fain called former President Trump a scab. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down 98 points on the day right now, while the NASDAQ is up 55. And our KSL weather looks like our sunny Wednesday will turn into a cloudy Thursday. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the 9s, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
My doctor told me my blood pressure is borderline. I figured I could worry about it or do something about it. So I took control with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula. It works safely and naturally to help maintain healthy blood pressure with a custom blend of garlic, vitamins, and minerals. And it's odor-free. I'm taking charge with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
Valentine's Day is here. This year, give the ultimate gift. Name a star after your sweetheart. This is Rocky Moselle with International Star Registry. For 45 years, we've named millions of stars for celebrities, dignitaries, and individuals worldwide. For $59 and a call to 800-282-3333 or visit starregistry.com, you can give the most memorable gift. The star you name will be recorded in book form in the U.S. Copyright Office. Visit starregistry.com or call 800-282-3333.
IVC, Interventional Vascular and Vein Center, is having a New Year, New Leg special event on Saturday, January 27th. This will be a free screening for varicose veins at their office in Provo. Don't let leg pain slow you down in 2024. Why wait? Now is the time to kick off the new year with new legs. Come and learn why starting at the beginning of the year is ideal to get you ready for spring. IVC has been in business for over 20 years and has been voted the best vein center of Utah Valley for 10 years running. IVC's doctors, advanced practice providers, and sonographers will be on hand to answer your questions. So come see them Saturday, January 27th for a free varicose vein screening. Space is limited, so please RSVP right now. Visit ivein.com. That's the letter I, VEIN.com to schedule your new year, new legs free screening at IVC. Because life starts when the pain stops.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Crews in Sandy are working on a crash with possible injuries. 90th South at 7th East. I believe it's on the westbound side. And they are blocking right lanes of travel. And for those on the Valley freeways, you're good to go. No problems there. Salt Lake Magazine calls Swan Lake breathtaking, featuring the timeless music of Tchaikovsky, performed live with the Ballet West Orchestra, February 9th through the 17th. Buy tickets at balletwest.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, mostly cloudy today, high around 45. And we'll see, actually, we're up to 48 right now. So it's been quite sunny as well with the clouds breaking up. But tomorrow we'll see rain and snow showers with a trace to a couple of inches of snow in the valleys. And right now it's 48 degrees and mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the headlines continue to focus us down to the southern border and what is happening or not happening at the border, as well as to our nation's capital, where the border battle continues. Today, we're going to go beyond both the headlines and the locations. We're actually going to go to a place called the Republican Party Lunch in the United States Senate, which can be colorful in language and indigestion-producing in content. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, we're going to look at this whole issue of what's going on at the border, what's being proposed, what's being included with funding for Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan, what will happen in the Senate, what will happen in the House. And we're going to do that from the context of the Republicans in the Senate who had their weekly lunch, which they always have, to talk about policy and strategy. And as I mentioned at the outset, it is often filled with colorful language and things that might produce indigestion, and it's not the food on the menu. Someone who has been inside the room where that happens, many a policy lunch, James Wallner, senior fellow at the R Street Institute, author of 2 books dealing with partisanship rights in a wide range of places and spaces, also teaches at America University. James, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you've been in many of these weekly lunches on the Republican side. Let's just give us a general sense of how these tend to play out, especially as deadlines approach or negotiations start to heat up.
Well, for many years, I sat in these lunches, and they were both incredible and underwhelming at the same time, many times. But the dynamic at play here is that, at least in the Republican Party, is a lot like how I think a lot of people may try to approach like marriages and relationships when they first get married and they're young and they don't really know how to communicate with the spouse. They don't really know how to work through issues and talk about things. And so you try to push things under the rug. And if you're the leadership, for instance, you don't want to embrace disagreement and conflict so that you can really resolve those issues and get to a better place. Instead, you want to avoid them. And when they crop up, you want to head them off as quickly as possible. And so when a senator raises an issue with how the leadership in particular wants to consider a bill and manage that bill on the floor, the leadership's going to try to prevent that issue from taking hold. They're going to try to prevent all the other senators from having that conversation. because that can only end in one way for the leadership, and that's not good for them.
That's right. And so often those things either do just get kind of short-circuited and they pass out the dessert and then they run out of time and it's time to go back to the salt mine there, so to speak. Well, this week it's been interesting in a very specific way as it relates to debate and consideration of things that are being negotiated about border security, especially in the context of aid to Ukraine and Israel. And so give us a sense of that lunch. Clearly, there were headlines in The Hill and a number of other outlets saying that there was a little bit of that frustration that you were talking about bubbling over. Give us some context to that.
Well, right now we have 3 Senate negotiators, Chris Murphy, Kristen Sinema, a Democrat and independent, although practically a Democrat, and then James Langford, a Republican, negotiating a bill that would give money to Israel and Ukraine, while simultaneously addressing the situation at the border and including some border security provisions. These negotiations have been unfolding in private. Senators have not been party to them. They do not know. And this is going to be a major bill. It costs a lot of money, and senators have not seen it at all. And so the question is, what's in the bill and how will it be handled? Well, the leadership wants to pass this bill as quickly as possible because they claim that Ukraine needs this money, in particular ASAP. Other senators are saying, we want to make sure we have the opportunity to review the bills, considering it didn't go through committee and it's going to go straight to the floor, and that we don't put it on the floor and try to pass it as quickly as possible. And so they're asking, in particular, Senator Mike Lee is asking his colleagues to join him in pledging to not invoke cloture, to not vote for proceeding with the debate on this bill until the leadership guarantees that they will have an opportunity to do their jobs and be senators, to read the bill, to debate it and amend it.
Yeah, that radical stuff of reading bills and debating it and then adding amendments and things that will make it better. That whole process matters. And it's one of those things that we have seen over and over again from both parties. Usually it's the leadership of both parties that love to do this, where they do it behind closed doors, drop the bill on the floor of the House or the Senate, say we've only got 12 hours go. Sometimes it's only a matter of minutes where nobody could even print out the bill, let alone read it. One of the things that I thought was interesting, and I think your historic perspective on this, when the Senate went after immigration back in 2013, seems so long ago, the Judiciary Committee in the Senate literally spent weeks marking up the legislation in public sessions so that all the senators would have plenty of time to digest it and figure out what they supported or what they'd like to amend.
But they're not, and in this instance, and that's absolutely correct, and in 2007, where the Senate failed to pass an immigration bill, it was the same thing. And in many respects, because of how that 2007 debate went, this debate, the leaders want to make it go differently. So I think that's part of it. Another part of it, though, is that if part of the bill is judiciary jurisdiction, it is immigration, and they will debate those issues. Another part of the bill is foreign policy and security funding and the Appropriations Committee and how much money we're going to give to Israel and to Ukraine and how are we going to pay for that? Are we going to pay for that? Those are two separate things. Now, those are two separate things that are highly controversial within the Republican Party and within the Democratic Party. And so the moving parts to this are such that negotiators, at least, instead of going through the Judiciary Committee, going through the Appropriations Committee and then fighting it all out on the floor and having a messy process, in their opinion, they would rather get it all lined up ahead of time, work out all the details, and then get through the floor process as quickly as possible. And one of the reasons why you have unnamed senators pushing back against Senator Lee's call and effort to delay this bill, and not delay, that's the wrong word, to do his job, I think. They're pushing back on that because they see the Senate floor as an obstacle. They see it as a hindrance, that the real work has already happened. We've already done our job, and so you should just approve what we've done. The problem with that is that all senators represent Americans, and Americans have different opinions about policies, and they want their representatives to have a say and the construction of those policies, and in what policy passes and what policy doesn't.
Yeah, and I think that one of the most important things, regardless of how you feel about border security or immigration or funding for Ukraine, set that aside, folks. The process matters. So regardless of how you feel about that particular issue, the process matters. And I don't think anyone should be comfortable with one senator doing the negotiations on something that then everyone's going to have to take an up or down, all or nothing choice in the end. That's not the way it was designed. It's supposed to be hard. And it's supposed to be not an obstacle, but it's a feature, not a flaw, in how the founders set this country up. And I think it's time that we embrace that, again, across the political spectrum. So, James, as you see this playing out, clearly things are bubbling up in both the House and the Senate as it relates to this. Is this another example of just trying to do too many things at once, including foreign policy and things that should go through judiciary when it comes to border security and immigration? Is this just one more example of doing too much and then having too few involved in the process?
I think it's mainly having too few involved in the process. The Senate can do as much as it wants. I think the key is, can senators debate bills? You can have a big omnibus bill, and if it's on the floor for 4 months or 3 months or however long it takes, and it's a truly open debate, then it's not as problematic because people have weighed in and they've had a chance to do it. The Senate isn't a factory where we go to build a product, and then senators aren't factory workers who are mindlessly assembling that product according to a blueprint that was designed elsewhere. That's not what the Senate is. The Senate is a place where an activity happens. It is a place where our representatives go to engage in the act of self-government. It's the activity, not the outcome, that matters. And so when we put the outcome ahead of that activity, what we end up doing is undermining the institution and making it virtually impossible for it to do the job for which it was created. So in this debate, I'm looking, and I find much more consequential, the reaction to Senator Lee's call on his colleagues to join him in delaying and using their leverage to insist on the right to have amendments, to insist on the right to debate bills. That, to me, is far more consequential than the outcome of a particular supplemental or border security provision and debate. And that's what I'm going to be watching.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And that process matters. It should be in public. That's how we get transparency, and that's how we can actually hold people accountable for what they're doing. James Wallner, as always, we always wanted to get you a T-shirt that said, "I survived the Republican conference lunch again and again." But we appreciate your perspective, taking us behind the door and into the room where it happens, and always great perspective. Thanks for joining us, James.
Thanks for having me.
Again, that's James Wallner, Senior Fellow at the R Street Institute, Sage of the Senate, that guy. And he's been in a lot of those lunches. But what the call is for is what we should all be paying attention to. Not how, not language, not indigestion, not distraction or distortion, but the process. Because when we use the right process in governing, we usually get to the right result. And even if we get to the wrong result, it's transparent, and then people can be held accountable. That's worth thinking about. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Many Utahns are in a credit crunch.
Utah's seeing one of the biggest upticks of credit card delinquency in the nation.
And we're not alone.
Credit card debt in the U.S. recently jumped over $1 trillion.
Get the story and helpful suggestions for debt relief. Begin with Tim and Amanda first thing weekday mornings 5 to 9. Join the conversation with Dave and Debbie and Boyd Matheson middays. And Jeff Kaplan has the latest afternoons at 3.
We have you covered
all day
at KSL News Radio.
It's always about growing stronger together with Hercules Credit Union. They've been doing this for a long time. They've been around since 1946, offering the highest quality of financial services to the community because they're in the community. They know what it takes to treat you right, and right now they're going to treat you right in a right way. All you have to do is open a new checking account at Hercules Credit Union. They're going to upgrade you to Premier Checking status for free, no monthly fees. That's an extraordinary thing. Plus, you get all the benefits of being a Premier Checking account holder. You get ultimate in identity theft protection, travel benefits, all kinds of perks, cellular care coverage, and much, much more. Again, all you have to do is open up that new checking account at Hercules Credit Union. They're going to upgrade you to Premier status for free. Check that out today. You can find their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, Riverton, and Salt Lake City because they are part of the community. And you can always find them in the online community at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
When words come out of our mouths and everything sounds fine, no one bats an eye. But if things come out a little jumbled or letters sound different than most, there's speech therapy. But did you know that speech therapy is used for more than just stuttering or disfluency? From articulation to expressive and receptive language to a simple act of swallowing that most of us take for granted, speech therapy can do amazing things for you, your health, and of course your sense of self. That's why Summit Speech Therapy is here. Summit Speech Therapy works with people of all ages, from infants and toddlers who have a difficult time feeding or eating, TBI, stroke, or coma patients, to children and adults with speech problems. So much of it is all related, and Summit Speech Therapy can help. Summit works with all insurance companies as well as private pay options, and the experience can be life-changing. With clinics up and down the Wasatch Front, including Murray, with no long waiting for an appointment. For more, visit summitslp.com. That's summitslp.com.
Okay, that's good. Whoa, Dave!
Sorry, I'll go grab some paper towels. You can't let Dave pour things. He works at JCW's. They fill stuff up past the brim over there, like their milkshakes. They're thick, rich, and oh my gosh.
Delicious?
Oh no. Dave's filling up Crystal's car for her.
Dave, stop!
Hey, this is Clark for JCW. Stop into any of our 5 locations today. We're located in American Fork, Thanksgiving Point, Provo, South Jordan, and our new location in Harriman. Come in and see why at JCW's we believe in quality and a lot of it.
Hi, this is Scott Trout of Cordell & Cordell. If you're a dad who is facing divorce, there are extra layers of stress that may include stereotypes and assumptions. No two situations are the same. Our legal experience and dedication prepare us for whatever legal challenges we face together. You need a partner you can count on. For more than 30 years, Cordell & Cordell has represented men in divorce.
Offices in Midvale and Clearfield. 1412 South Legend Hills Drive, Suite 200, Clearfield, Utah, 84015. Online at CordellCordell.com.
Jackson Hewitt has a plan to get your tax refund fast. With a buck here, buck there. Here a buck, there a buck, everywhere a buck.
You don't have to wait weeks for your tax refund. Get money sooner with a no-fee refund advance loan at Jackson Hewitt.
On this loan, there's a money today guarantee.
Don't settle for chicken feed. Get fast bucks at Jackson Hewitt today. No-fee refund advance loans by Republic Bank offered to eligible clients. Money today guarantee if approved for a loan on a prepaid card. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
We're going to take a look now at young conservatives, many who question how much their party actually values them. Of course, we discussed yesterday on the program, PACs aligned with the Biden campaign. Supporters of President Biden have dropped about $1 million on influencer interaction. The GOP, for the most part, has pretty much ignored Gen Z voters. I don't think they've done a very good job reaching out at all. And so we wanted to dig into that just a little bit. Really thrilled to have joining us on the program today, Rachel Janfazza, a journalist covering youth political culture, founder of the Up and Up, a newsletter focused on Gen Z's political zeitgeist. And Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great piece at Politico talking about what is going on and are the Gen Zers finding a place? Give us kind of the backstory and what you're finding out as it relates to these young conservatives and trying to find a real political home.
Totally. Well, it is a great question, and I was fortunate enough to attend Run Gen Z's Iowa conference. Run Gen Z is a group that looks to recruit, train, and mentor young conservatives running for state and local office. So these are young people who are aspiring politicians or sitting state or local elected officials. And they were there to help, grow and foster that culture for the folks who want to come up after them. So through the conversations that I had at this conference, what I realized very quickly was that they all were identifying this singular problem within the Republican Party, which one of the folks who I spoke to identified very well. You know, it literally says it in the name of the party, the grand old party. The party is very old, and from their perspective, isn't doing such a great job of reaching out to younger potential voters. You know, we've seen throughout the past many election cycles that young voters, and of course historically, young voters lean to the left. And in recent elections, Democrats have performed especially well with this voting bloc because they are proud to be conservative. They are proud to be a part of this party, and they with their peers. So that was kind of the backdrop. And while I was there, I heard just a bunch of comments about how they felt like the party infrastructure wasn't set up to be inclusive or welcoming to their voices and concerns.
And that's such an important thing. We actually just finished talking about the United States Senate and the policy lunch where the old guard shuts down all the debate, does the decisions, and some are very frustrated with that. Really clear that the younger conservatives are struggling with the fact that their voices aren't being heard, that they don't have real influence there or real say. Give us a sense in terms of some of those conservative voices or some of the organizations out there that you've been tracking that do have some clout with these young Republicans, young conservatives, and what they're doing that's resonating or something that might turn into something.
Right. So, you know, there are these groups out there and certain political influencers, so to speak, who do have traction with younger audiences on social media. And so some of the folks that I spoke to at the conference are hoping that groups like the Republican National Committee would team up with more influencers like that. The Republican National Committee, for its part, actually does have a youth advisory council, which I talked about a bit in the piece. There's been some tension over whether or not that council is doing an effective job of teaming up with these outside groups to effectively reach young people where they are, mainly on social media, on TikTok, for example, given that the Republican National Committee itself does not have a TikTok account. And, you know, the Democratic National Committee does have an account, so there's a difference there. But more so to your question of these outside groups and the willingness to team up with them or not, I mean, it kind of varies. The folks so I spoke to a group of young elected officials who actually resigned from the RNC's Youth Advisory Council because of their concerns that it wasn't reaching young people in the way that it aspired to. These folks had written a letter of resignation calling it a fundraising ploy with no actual vision. And some of those, the ones who had resigned, are advocating for the RNC to team up with groups like Turning Point, which is a massive conservative youth organization, although there's been some controversy around that group in particular. So it's a little bit of a he said, she said, about, you know, who's doing the best job of reaching out to young people. But there are a number of these types of influencers on the right who effectively are, you know, cultivating this audience with young conservatives and young Republicans. And when it comes to candidates, I mean, the folks that I spoke to at the conference, though he's now, of course, dropped out of the Republican primary race, they were very appreciative of the way that Vivek Ramaswamy had utilized TikTok and worked with influencers such as Jake Paul to effectively communicate with young people. So big picture, you know, whether or not they're utilizing these influencers or outside groups or not, what the young people I spoke with were saying was that it's really more about the messenger and that mode of communication, almost more so than the actual message itself.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting in terms of who was able to do that well. Clearly, Vivek Ramaswamy hit some notes, and it was the effort. It was where he met the young voters and how he went about it to get them where they are, as you mentioned. Just in our closing minute here, as you look at it moving forward, what is it that is going to be the game changer there? Obviously, the future of the party depends on the future of the party. Eventually, the older folks do age out. There is a thing about that. But what are they doing to actually change the dynamic or to create space for a different kind of conversation?
Totally. Well, I mean, I think this conference is a good example of it because it really was about inspiring leadership from the next generation. So these are very, politically active young people who are raising their hand, throwing their hat in the ring to run for office. So I think there's a lot of hope that comes from the young members of the party themselves. In terms of the intergenerational dialogue and, even just looking at 2024 and beyond, I mean, while a lot of the young people I spoke to at this conference in particular love former President Donald Trump and really, came into the Republican Party that was the Trump party, for Gen Z voters, the first election that they could vote in at the presidential level was the 2016 election. So, this is a party that they have opted into. They don't know politics without Trump. And yet, there will be a day when Trump is no longer around and, the party is going to have to answer for what that will look like moving forward. And so I think from the perspective of the people I spoke to at this conference who are running for office or who are sitting in state seats or local seats across the country or have already served in state or local office, I mean, they know that they're the future and they are working together and coming up with creative modes of communication to reach their peers. This organization is just one example of that. And they are fired up and ready to go moving forward, so far as I can tell.
Yeah, and that's the important thing. I think getting them running for office, being engaged in that process, ultimately they will lead because they will lead, and they're engaged in it that way. I love that. It's a great piece. You should check this out at Politico.com today. Again, Rachel, sorry about that, Rachel. Jan Faza.
All good.
Jan Faza is a journalist covering youth political culture. She's founder of The Up and Up, a newsletter focused on Gen Z's political zeitgeist. And again, it's a great piece at Politico.com. And Rachel, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next.
At KSL News Radio, I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. A jury in Salt Lake City has found Richard Christopher guilty on 2 counts of murder, not guilty on a 3rd count. Christopher was accused of killing Danny Gallegos, Levi Collins, and Brandon Emerson more than 9 years ago. The court did not find Christopher guilty in the Gallegos murder, but he was also accused of disposing of the bodies at a crematorium for animals in Utah County. Utah Jazz owner Ryan Smith has formally asked the NHL to bring a new team to Utah. Smith has been talking with NHL officials about this idea for the past 2 years. Alejandro Mendez says he likes the idea of Utah getting another professional sports team.
I'm very into sports, especially soccer, but I think that bringing a hockey team down in Utah, it would be a really, really good idea and a really good experience, to have a new sport into the Delta Center.
According to a statement from the Smith organization, the Delta Center would be the interim home of a new hockey team before building a new arena. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Turkish parliament has ratified Sweden's bid to be the newest member of the NATO alliance. The only NATO country that's left to ratify is Hungary. U.S. officials say they're not concerned about that. State Department Principal Deputy Spokesperson Vedant Patel.
Each respective member of the alliance need to work through their respective processes to get this done. We, of course, welcome the progress that we saw in Turkey this week, and we look forward to our Hungarian partners also moving along.
And your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average, closing trading today down 99 points. And the NASDAQ was down 55 for the day. The S&P 500 down just about 4 points. Our KSL weather looks like the clouds are going to come back for tomorrow. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:32.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio. Tim and I are going to give you an email address in just a second that you should use to try and win a full year of Soda weight loss, the full program for a year for free, plus a $2,000 wardrobe makeover. But I know some of you have probably heard us talk about how I've lost 34 pounds. Your daughter, Tim, lost, what, 42?
42.
42 pounds. I did it in less than 3 months, and that was 2 years ago. But everybody comes to this program for a different reason.
All the other programs out there push the drugs, and I wanted to do it not using drugs.
That's John, and his idea was, I want to do it in a healthy way so I can maintain it.
Yeah, and look, there's no drugs, there's no counting calories. This isn't a fat diet, it's not a diet at all. They teach you how to look at food differently and keep that weight off, which is the main message here. But if you keep that weight off, you're going to need new clothes. So more now about the Shape Up Showdown, where you could win a full year of Soda's amazing program and $2,000 worth of wardrobe change. Email ShapeUp to SodaWeightLoss.com.
Soda Weight Loss, SOTA, stands for State of the Art.
Experience the fast action fun and thrilling competition of ISU World Cup speed skating at the Utah Olympic Oval, January 26 through 28. Cheer on Team USA's Olympians, including Beijing 2022 gold medalist Aaron Jackson, as they race against the world's top speed skating athletes from China, Canada, the Netherlands, Japan, and more on the fastest ice on earth. Tickets for ISU World Cup speed skating are available now at UtahOlympicLegacy.org.
If you can't hear well, you're hurting your relationships and your own health. In fact, research shows that good hearing stimulates your brain, which helps reduce memory loss. Research also indicates that people with hearing loss tend to withdraw socially, which affects the quality of one's life. If you think you're suffering from hearing loss, it's time you had a free hearing consultation at My Hearing Centers. To learn more, call My Hearing Centers at 801-438-7058. That's 801-438-7058.
Do you enjoy fishing, hunting, or just soaking in the beautiful outdoors? Then check out the KSL Outdoors Show, airing Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and midnight on KSL 5 TV. Outdoors with Adam Eagle is a unique show that takes viewers on a journey through Utah's beautiful backcountry. Watch it live every weekend or find the KSL Outdoors Show on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. It's the KSL Outdoors Show, brought to you by Camp Chef.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have a crash with possible injuries coming out of Parley's on westbound I-80 prior to the Foothill Drive exit. It's blocking a right lane of travel. Also delays north and southbound Bangerter Highway approaching 9800 South Shields Lane. Common Spirit hospitals, clinics, and caregivers, all connected to advanced health care in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, mostly cloudy today, or so they were wishing us, but that's not the way it turned out. Things have been mostly sunny, actually, this afternoon. We'll see rain and snow showers tomorrow, though, with a trace to a couple of inches of snow possible in our valleys. And right now, mostly sunny, 48 degrees. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we've been covering throughout the day today, headlines, of course, around New Hampshire. Nikki Haley came in second, a little larger margin than I think her supporters were hoping for. I think they were hoping if they could get inside of single digit, that would be a little more of a momentum message for them. But she is moving on to South Carolina and on to Super Tuesday. Her candidacy, of course, has not fully connected with the Republicans or the Republican base, for sure. But she could have an interesting lane if you looked at it more from a general election standpoint. Really fascinating piece in Politico today in terms of Nikki Haley's potential of picking up some of those stray Democrats. Ian Ward is a reporter with Politico, had a great piece, so you should check that out at Politico.com today. Ian, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So give us a little of the breakdown there. Obviously, Nikki Haley still struggling to connect with some of the base or the hardcore former president supporters. but she is getting that center-left space kind of in an interesting way. Give us a sense of that coming out of New Hampshire.
Yeah, I was in New Hampshire the week before yesterday's primary, and one of her major strategies, and a strategy that sort of bloomed around her campaign, was trying to convince moderates and independents and even, liberals in the state to vote in the Republican primary and back her. Of course, New Hampshire is a bit unique in that it has a large population of independent voters. They call them unaffiliated voters up there. And the system in New Hampshire allows those voters to vote either in the Democratic or Republican primary. I talked to a group called Primary Pivot, run by a liberal activist named Robert Schwartz, who would lead a campaign to convince Democratic-leaning independents to vote in the Republican primary and, in favor of Haley. And the results show that about two-thirds of independent voters in the state ended up backing Haley. They make up 42% of the electorate up there. But, obviously it wasn't enough to push her over the top. But and then that model has a bit of a difficult time traveling, given that New Hampshire's system is a bit unique. But, she's continuing to appeal to independents. So, it'll be interesting to see how that develops going forward.
Yeah, as you do a little bit of the post-game analysis on New Hampshire in terms of those who actually did show up and cross over, of course, former President Trump was, railing against that as the infiltration and all of those kinds of things. But when you look at it from a little broader context as you unpack that, you mentioned it, Ian, that New Hampshire has a unique way of going about it. But is there a there for the Haley camp in terms of how they move forward and the kind of messaging they may go after as they move into South Carolina and towards Super Tuesday?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's much of a there. I mean, her path to victory would require her to have begun already winning and racking up much more delegates than she's already racking up. From a messaging standpoint, I think she, like a lot of the Republicans, has tried to toe this line between attacking Trump and differentiating herself from Trump and not alienating, voters who in the Republican base who feel sympathetic towards Trump. And, that's proving an incredibly difficult line to toe. And I don't think they've nailed the messaging. I don't think any Republican really successfully did that. And she ramped up her attacks on Trump a bit in the lead up to New Hampshire, talking about his age and mental fitness and, but it doesn't seem to be resonating with voters. So unless they've got a new messaging campaign that they haven't rolled out yet, I don't see much appeal there in South Carolina or Nevada or beyond.
Yeah, and one of the things you pointed out in your piece that was kind of those New Hampshire-style states. Virginia's an open primary, Massachusetts. Where else might they be looking at where you do have those big chunks of either independent or unaffiliated voters?
Yeah, well, certainly not in South Carolina, which has a pretty ruby red Trump state, and Nevada also. The Trump campaign has done some clever maneuvering there to lock up the Republican electorate. The Nevada Republican Party is very close with the Trump camp. So I think the question is whether she can get beyond there and get to Super Tuesday, right? As I pointed out in the piece, there are a bunch of states, Super Tuesday states, that have either semi-open primaries or fully open primaries. But I think, that's thinking well down the road for her campaign, and there's no guarantee she'll even make it to South Carolina, let alone out of South Carolina. So, it's a pretty long runway for them there.
Yeah. Good stuff. Great piece at Politico.com. Ian Ward is a reporter with Politico. Ian, thanks for joining us today.
Yep, thanks very much.
All right, that's Ian Ward from Politico. And again, his piece was really, can Nikki Haley pick off these stray Democrats that are running around, these independents as well? And I think one of the fascinating things to look at is beyond South Carolina, and Ian alluded to this, that there are a number of states that do have these more open primaries where you can choose, like, I'm going to either participate in the Democratic primary or I'm going to participate in the Republican primary. And so if you look at those, and Super Tuesday will be the big haul of delegates. Remember, the score in the delegate race is 32 for President Trump, 17 for Nikki Haley. Magic number is 1,215. So on Super Tuesday, again, assuming everything rolls forward through South Carolina and there's some sort of split there. You'll have Virginia. You've got Massachusetts. And Ian pointed out in his piece that Massachusetts has 61% independent voters, just 30% Democratic voters. Colorado is kind of a quasi-primary. Minnesota's a little bit semi-open as well. Vermont is an open primary. And so there are a number of places where, again, I think that kind of messaging could play or could at least be a foothold. Because remember, it's a race for delegates. And anywhere you can get delegates gives you power until someone hits the magic number, 1,215. And if it gets all the way to convention and no one has that magic number, then you have a completely different process. I don't think that will necessarily be the case this time around. But that is why you play the game. And that's why you have votes. And that's why the American people in all 50 states get the opportunity to cast those votes in primaries or at caucuses to make their wishes known in terms of a nominee for the Democrats and for the Republicans. And so the important thing, again, is to make sure we don't short-circuit the process, that we don't stifle the debate. Because remember, on both sides of the aisle, and these are the questions, and these are some of the fascinating conversations I'm having with people and my sources back in D.C. and those who are in the middle of these conversations, is there are a lot of Democrats right now who are very worried that President Joe Biden can win in November. And on the Republican side, there are a whole lot of people who may be convinced that former President Trump will be the nominee, but they don't believe that he will win on the first Tuesday in November. So both Democrats and Republicans are struggling with the idea of, hey, it's really nice to win a nomination. It's nice to win a primary. But in the end, the only thing that actually matters is winning on the first Tuesday in November. Because if you don't win on the first Tuesday in November, the first Wednesday will come and you'll be looking for something else to do. And so that's an important part of this whole process is it's not enough just to be the nominee. You have to be able to win. And so that's the question. That is the question that people are beginning to ask. Some are asking it more loudly. I've actually heard more noise on the Democratic side than I have on the Republican. But I think it's equal. I think the challenges for Joe Biden heading into the fall and the first Tuesday of November are every bit as great as the problems and challenges that the former president will have going into the fall and towards that first Tuesday in November. And so we'll continue to talk about all of that. We'll step aside for one last break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the third way and why both Democrats and Republicans are getting pretty testy and pretty angry with the possibility of those third-party candidates. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's week 2 for Utah lawmakers.
A bill to regulate virtual marriages.
Another DEI bill, this one about the workplace.
Child-proof social media, everybody age verified.
Making decisions that affect our lives and what happens after.
Utah lawmakers are being asked to consider a new process for the bodies of people who have passed on.
Get continuing coverage of every bill all this week. Eye on the Hill 2024.
We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
Jazz Plus is here. With Jazz Plus, you can watch games live from your TV, computer, tablet, or phone. So don't miss any of the action when you're at home or away. Can't get enough of your favorite team? Go behind the scenes and see what the team is up to on and off the court. With flexible plans, you can choose what works for you, from full season to monthly, or just pick a single game you want to watch. Sign up and subscribe today at UtahJazzPlus.com.
Tired of living in your parents' basement or renting? You want to buy a home, but you were told that your debt-to-income ratio is too high. This is why you need a highly qualified mortgage lender. Rick at Loans by Rick has 22 years of experience and has helped hundreds of clients lower their debt-to-income so they can make the most important purchase of their lives and buy a home. As with any profession, there are different levels of mortgage lenders, so why not work with the best lender? One that can cut through the mortgage jungle and get you into a home. As interest rates come down, home values will go up, creating multiple offers which will raise home values higher. Don't wait to buy a home. Buy now. You can always refinance later and save hundreds of dollars. Let Loans by Rick guide you with your mortgage process. Call 801-809-SAVE or click loansbyrick.com. That's loansbyrick.com.
Rick Kirschenbaum, NMLS 241179, and Vintage Lending, NMLS 287106 are equal housing lenders. Some restrictions apply.
Debbie, both you and I like to do it yourself. Whenever we can, we'll do it ourselves. One thing I will not mess with, the electrical work in my house. I'm just too nervous.
I second that. I don't touch electrical either. Never have, never will. That's why we need Master Electrical on our team. DIY? That's right. If you're DIYing a project, don't touch the electrical system in your house. Make sure you call Master Electrical.
And one of the things they'll do is they come out, they give you a bid. When you receive that bid for the work you want done, they honor that bid. So if it takes longer, if it's a little bit more difficult, they will just say, you know what? To keep a good relationship with you guys, I'm going to honor that bid no matter what.
And they're always open, even for emergency services. So you want to give them a call today. The number to call is 801-543-2222. Again, you're calling Master Electrical at 801-543-2222.
Yeah, they serve everyone from Logan to Santaquin. All you have to do is either call them, like you said, Deb, or check them out online at masterelectrical.com.
Have you heard about the huge clearance sale at Dave's Bernina in St. George and Provo? It's time to buy a better machine and get a Bernina. Up to 48 months, no interest on certain models.
Huge January savings on Bernina's Special Edition 770QE and 570QE CAFE machines that include a free embroidery module and free gifts.
Purchase the L890 Serger and receive a free Bernina Studio cabinet, a $3,250 value. How about $2,400 worth of free gifts when you buy a Bernina B790 Pro model?
A limited supply. These machines won't last.
Dave's Bernina has incredible deals on school machine buybacks during the sale.
Starting at $499, plus super deals on floor models and trade-ins.
From everyday sewing tasks to artistic designs, count on Dave's Bernina. In business since 1960, 691 East St. George Boulevard and 2017 North 550 West in Provo.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with things I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of the disease called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, straight lines seem wavy, like when looking at a door frame. For others, blurry or missing spots can make it hard to read or see loved ones' faces. Many have trouble seeing in low light, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you've been diagnosed with AMD and notice vision changes, don't wait. Talk to your eye doctor about GA today. Learn more at GAWon'tWait.com. That's GAWon'tWait.com.
Well, hunting season's over.
It's just starting for me.
Wait, what do you mean?
Yeah, look at this. I'm online at huntexpo.com applying for Utah's top 200 big game tags for just $5 each.
Utah's best 200 tags, $5. Come again?
It's the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo in Salt Lake City, February 15th to 18th. They've got over 500 guides, outfitters, and exhibitors.
So we could book a hunt while we're there.
Right, and they've got big auctions, big banquets, live entertainment. It looks like there's free seminars by hunting pros, too.
Oh, I see. We can apply for these Utah $5 permits right here at huntexpo.com. Yep. You must validate in person.
We're going to the hunting expo.
Well, all right, let's do this. I'll get the tickets.
Okay.
Apply for the $5 tags. I can book our hotel. We could sign up for all kinds of plans.
Your hunt starts here at the Western Hunting and Conservation Expo and huntexpo.com. Produced in cooperation with the Utah Office of Tourism.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, a man from Salt Lake has been convicted of 2 murders that happened almost 10 years ago. Second, the owner of the Utah Jazz is asking politely, please send us an NHL hockey team. And third, NATO is a big step closer to admitting Sweden as a member of the alliance. 48 degrees and mostly sunny right now in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. As we round out the program today, as New Hampshire is now clearly in the rearview mirror, candidates and campaigns are heading south to South Carolina, and a lot of headlines, a lot of obituaries being written about the state of the race and who's in and who's not and what comes next. And I think it's important, again, just to go back to where we started the program today. The score, if you're looking at the scoreboard, Donald Trump has 32 delegates. Nikki Haley has 17 delegates. And the magic number, in order to win, is 1,215. In fact, our good friend George Will, friend of the show, just posted at the Washington Post. He likened it to a baseball game. He said that would be like ending the game in the bottom of the first inning. There's a long way to go, and it can be extended. But it's whether or not we are willing to extend the conversation, or will we just buy into the headlines of both political parties, be very clear it is in their best interest to have coronations rather than elections. And the interesting thing is we often talk about that currently our politics, I think it's a monopoly. It's just two-headed. It has a blue side and a red side, but it's really a monopoly. And they often collude together to keep everyone else out. We had Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the show not too long ago, just talking about how hard and how expensive it is and how many legal hurdles you have to clear in order to get your name on a ballot. Why? Because the monopoly, two-headed, Republicans and Democrats, make it next to impossible for anyone else to be an alternative choice. Now, we know that there has been a group out there over the course of the last year called No Labels, which has said, look, the American people are not interested in a Trump-Biden 2.0 version going back to 2020. And they have said that they will wait, wisely so, until after Super Tuesday before they decide if they are going to indeed field a presidential ticket. They've talked about a unity ticket of a Democrat and a Republican, or maybe it's one of those and an independent, any combination. And the interesting thing to me is you can always tell when the establishment is starting to crack just a little bit, and they get really nervous. And this is how I know that. We talked about it in the last segment. You've got a lot of Democrats who are starting to say, hey,